Hi, I'm Michael DeRosa. I'm the Visual Art Director at Coffeyville Community College. This is a student of mine, Brad. He's going to be throwing on the potter's wheel today. You know what you're going to throw today?
A cup or small vase.
All right, so he's going to be throwing a cup or small vase. And so there's three things that Brad has to do, and anybody throwing on the potter's wheel. And what's so cool about this process is that no matter what year it is, like it's year 2020 right now, if it was the year 1500 BCE and you're throwing on the potter's wheel, you still have to go through the same process. So Brad's doing the same thing that someone did 10,000 years ago. He's doing the same thing here if they were throwing a pot. So the first thing he's doing is he is centering the clay, and so he has to get the clay where it's centered all the way around the bat, and he has to get the clay where the base of it's centered. So when it's centered, the clay's not going to have any wobble to it. You can see it has a little bit of wobble to it right now, and so it's just not quite centered. What he's doing is, the reason he's using water is that water is providing lubrication so the clay slides between his hands and the clay, and so he wants that clay to slide so there's no friction. And then so how he's centering it is he is putting pressure on the sides and the top at the same time. So when he puts pressure on the sides of the clay, it tries to go up. When he puts pressure on the top, then it tries to go back down low and wide. And if he puts pressure on the sides of the clay and the top at the same time, the clay has nowhere to go except in the center. And right now it looks like he's almost got it in the center. It has a very slight wobble to it, and he's almost there. The second thing that he will do is he will open up the clay. He will find the center of the clay. He can use his thumbs or his middle finger and his pointer finger together. It just depends, both work, depends on what technique he wants to use. He will find the center of the clay, and then he will establish the depth. And so the depth means like how deep the well of the clay is going to make. He'll make a well in the clay, and it'll go down to the bat. The bat's what he's throwing on top of the potter's wheel. He'll probably keep the depth about a 1/4 inch off the bat will be the depth he'll establish. And then once he has the depth established, he'll establish the width. And so right now he just now has made the depth, and now he's already going into the width of the pot. And so he's already done 2 of the 3 steps. He's centered the clay and he's opened the clay, and that looks like he's just kind of trying to compress the bottom. And again, the reason he keeps dipping his hand in this container here is he's just getting water out of it. He's using a sponge. The sponge just holds a lot of water and provides a constant flow of water to the clay while he's working on it. Notice the wheel spins to the left. Almost all potter's wheels spin to the left. The left-hand side of the wheel will be the power side as the clay spinning into his left hand. As the clay spinning away from him, that's the right side of the wheel. The right-hand side of the wheel is the delicate side. So right now he's getting ready to do a pull. He'll make an indentation in the bottom of the pot and then push all that clay to the top. And so that was a nice pull. And so you can see how the clay got taller. As the clay got tall, and it got much more thin. So anyway, that's what he's doing. So he just did 2.5 of the steps. He's done. He's centered, open, and he's pulled. And here in just a few moments, he'll be done with this pot. That's a pretty fast speed. Okay, that's the thing. Yeah, I just whispered to Brad that he had a pretty fast speed for pulling. Typically a pull would be done with a much slower speed on the wheel, and so I was afraid he was going to crash and burn. But Brad's throwing lots of pots. He's one of the best students I've had in quite a few years at throwing. And so this will probably be his last big pull. All right, so Brad's gonna probably collar this in and stretch out the body of the clay to make it into a vase form would be my guess. Brad's making this look really easy. If you've never done this before, nobody starts off good on the potter's wheel. Everybody starts off bad. And anyone that can throw like Brad, how did he get like that? If you would have met Brad a couple years ago or a year and a half ago, he was okay at throwing. He really struggled. Now he's really developed. He's done it enough. He's practiced a lot where he has pretty good success almost every time he throws. That wasn't the case a year and a half ago. That wasn't the case with me 26 or 27 years ago. Whenever I said at the Pottersville, it was I hope to God this works out. And then after you go through centering, opening, and pulling enough, you start to get control, and you make it look easy like Brad does. So anyone can learn this process. It's just a matter of if you want to, and if you want to, then you have to practice. And there's nobody that can throw without going through the experience of centering, opening, and pulling a lot of times. And so, if I was to guess, I bet you Brad here has probably about 500 hours of sitting at the wheel with a piece of clay in his hand by this point in time. So what you're seeing him do, he earned it. And so right now he's got the body of the vase established. He's stretching out the body a little bit, and then where it curves in towards the top, that would be the shoulder. And now he has a neck and a mouth established on the base. And so now it's just whatever shape he wants to, how far he wants to push it or to get it into whatever shape. It's just his choice. And so everything starts out from a cylinder unless you're going to throw a platter. And so that's a nice little vase, Brad. So Brad, is that fun to do?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's quite therapeutic, I've found. And, I don't know. I took a real liking to it.
Yeah, and it's very methodical. I've worked out a lot of problems sitting at the potter's wheel before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found my way through quite a bit here.
So what Brad just did is he trimmed off the bottom, and so because of gravity and the way the clay's wet, it's always going to be thick on the bottom. And so by trimming that away like he is, then that's just going to help his pot dry more even. And then what would happen is that before he finishes this out, probably in about 8 to 12 hours, the clay is going to, just through evaporation, is going to enter into another stage we call leather hard. The clay's still wet, but it's also dry, and so it becomes really firm. And then because it's still wet, it's also plastic enough that he can trim it, and he would turn it upside down and then trim the bottom of it to make it even. You might trim a foot on it where it's kind of fancy, or he might just do a flat bottom, but the bottom has to. The goal is to make the base all the same thickness all the way through. That would be his ideal goal. And so everything that's thrown has to be trimmed after it's leather hard. Then after that, we'd put it inside a kiln after it dries all the way. So the clay would go, this is in the wet stage, and it enters into leather hard. Then it dries all the way where all the surface water evaporates out of the clay. Then it becomes what we call greenware. Once the clay is greenware, we put it inside a kiln. We do the first firing called the bisque firing. This is a low fire clay earthenware. It's going to be fired out at about, it'll be Cono 4 translated 1924 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll force all the chemical water out of the clay. All the clay particles are really going to be smushed together because the chemical water goes out, and then it becomes very hard and permanent, and would last, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 Brad's lifetimes before it disintegrates again or breaks back down into clay again, or workable clay again. Then, if Brad chooses to, he can put a glaze over it, which is predominantly silica. And the silica, when it's heated up, will melt. It's going to glassify. Silica is the main ingredient, and glaze, main ingredient in glass. And so we paint the glaze over the pot after it's been this fire at another time, and then he has a finished piece. And so that's the process that we go through.